Yes, I am. From the sweet scented streams of thy eternity, give me to drink, O my God, and of the fruits of the tree of thy being, enable me to taste, O my hope. From the crystal springs of thy love, suffer me to quaff, O my glory. And beneath the shadow of thine everlasting providence, let me abide, O my light. Within the meadows of thy nearness, before thy presence, make me able to roam, O my beloved. And at the right hand of the throne of thy mercy, seat me, O my desire. From the fragrant breezes of thy joy, let a breath pass over me, O my goal. And into the heights of the paradise of thy reality, let me gain admission, O my adored one. To the melodies of the dove of thy oneness, suffer me to hearken, O resplendent one. And through the spirit of thy power and thy might, quicken me, O my provider. In the spirit of thy love, keep me steadfast, O my succorer. And in the path of thy good pleasure, set firm my steps, O my maker. Within the garden of thine immortality, before thine countenance, let me abide forever, O thou who art merciful unto me. And upon the seat of thy glory, establish me, O thou who art my possessor. To the heaven of thy loving kindness, lift me up, O my quickener. And unto the day star of thy guidance, lead me, O thou my attractor. Before the revelations of thine invisible spirit, summon me to the present, O thou who art my origin and my highest wish. And unto the essence of thy fragrance of thy beauty, which thou wilt manifest, cause me to return, O thou who art my God. Potent art thou to do what pleaseth thee. Thou art verily the most exalted, the all glorious, the all highest.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you. Tim, are you ready?
Yes, I am. The seeker should also, regarding backbiting as grievous error, and keep himself aloof from its dominion, inasmuch as backbiting quencheth the light of the heart and extinguisheth the light of the soul. He should be content with little and be freed from all inordinate desire. He should treasure the companionship of them that have renounced the world and regard avoidance of boastful and worldly people a precious benefit. At the dawn of every day, he should commune with God, and with all his soul preserve in the quest of his beloved. He should consume every wayward thought with the flame of his loving mention, and with the swiftness of lightning pass by all else save him. He should succor the dispossessed and never withhold his favor from the destitute. He should show kindness to animals, how much more unto his fellow man, to him who is endowed with the power of utterance. He should not hesitate to offer up his life for his beloved, nor allow the censor of the people to turn him away from the truth. He should not perish for others. He should not wish for others that which he doth not wish for himself, nor promise that which he doth not fulfill. With all his heart, he should avoid fellowship with evildoers and pray for the remission of their sins. He should forgive the sinful and never despise his low estate, for none knoweth what his own end shall be.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Jane, are you ready?
What a joy to introduce actor, author, producer, and social activist Rainn Wilson. Rainn is one of the most popular actors in the world and is best known for playing the role of Dwight on the Emmy-winning The Office. But what about the man behind the character? What is he about? What inspires him to co-found the Ledet Foundation, an educational initiative in rural Haiti that empowers at-risk women and girls through the arts? What motivated him to address climate change by producing the documentary, The Idiot's Guide to Climate Change, and even changing his name to Rainfall, Heatwave, Rising Sea Levels, Wilson. What motivated him to co-found that very successful website and YouTube channel, Soul Pancake? They figured out a way to get us all to tackle life's big questions, exploring what it means to be human, thinking about life's deeper meaning on love, faith, and death. Soul Pancake is comfort food for the soul. Their tagline is, "We make stuff that matters." And we can even find sample questions to start our own conversation on life's big question in his New York Times bestseller, Soul Pancake. And now what inspires Rainfall to write a new book addressing the trauma of the last few years, both from the effects of the pandemic and the rising societal tensions. He floats the possibility and hope for a spiritual revolution, a soul boom, he calls it, to find a healing transformation on both the personal and global level through spirituality. And most importantly, what compels the most popular actor in the world to freely give up his Friday evening to have a conversation with us? Now we have the opportunity to find out. Rainn, Dr. Wilson, we're all yours.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Nasir, Gary, Alex, everyone. Thanks for having me. Seems like there's people all over this great nation here.
Truly.
So
In
nice to
Canada.
see you. See a few friends there as well. Dara, Steve Sarowitz. Fantastic. So nice to see you all. What can I say? I'm really excited to be with you today. I have been, I finally finished my COVID project. It took me 3.5 years of work, and I just got, a few days ago, my publisher sent to me my new book, Soul Boom, Why We Need a Spiritual Revolution, that Jane mentioned. And this was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And it's a summation of so many things I've learned and pondered and wrestled with, spiritual ideas and psychological ones and sociological ones about our spiritual journeys that we take and the spiritual transformation that we need to take both individually and globally and societally. So very excited for that. It doesn't come out till April. I'm just planning my book tour right now, but I've just also spent the last 5 days reading the audiobook, which was pretty intense. It took me 20 hours to read the whole thing out loud. So very excited about that. And I wanted to share some stuff from the book with you all, because basically this book is kind of everything I know, believe, and feel about the Baha'i faith and changing the world. It's not a Baha'i book in particular. It's a book whose focus is to engage in elevated conversations about big topics. I tackle in it death. That's a good one. It's one of my favorite topics. Consciousness, free will. What else? God. I have a chapter called The Notorious God. And social transformation. And I make a lot of Star Trek references along the way. So very excited about that. Thank you for having me here. I noticed you started with a prayer, a really beautiful prayer by Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith. And, you know, I just wanted to say a little bit about prayer. It might be odd for some folks who don't know much about the Baha'i faith to come onto a Zoom and then there's someone reciting very poetic, heightened language from a book on a Zoom. Prayer is, we're in an interesting crossroads in our country because basically where I'm from in Los Angeles, people meditate a lot. A lot of people meditate, and people talk about their meditation practice, and they go to yoga classes, and they do meditation, but people don't pray. Whereas I find that when I visit Mid-America and Southern America, people pray a lot, but they don't meditate. So we kind of have, just as our country is divided in every way, we have on just about everything. Even now, gas stoves have become political, and climate change and vaccines have become politicized and partisanized. Prayer and meditation also seems divided, but that was such a beautiful prayer and very well said. And it reminded me of this wonderful book called by Annie Lamott. I don't know if you know her work. She's a wonderful writer, Christian writer. And she has a book called Help, Thanks, Wow. I'll put it in the notation. And because it's all about prayer. And those are the three types of prayer that she describes, that there are only three types of prayer: help, thanks, and wow. And I was thinking about that as I listened to From the Sweet-Scented Streams prayer by Baha'u'llah, that there is a beseeching for help in that prayer to a higher power. There's also a thanks that's in it, a gratitude, a graciousness. There's also a wow factor in the beautiful poetry contained in that prayer. And maybe we can put the prayer down. Oh, here's the reference book. Thank you. But maybe we can also put a link to that prayer so people can peruse it. When I teach children's classes during COVID, I taught children junior youth classes for a long time. And there's just a beautiful quote that Abdul Baha, the son of Baha'u'llah, he's really one of the world's most profound spiritual teachers that you'd ever want to read about or read stories about or read his writings. But Abdul Baha talks about prayer as being like a telegraph with one end of the wire in your heart and the other end in the divine kingdom. And I think that's just a beautiful image. I always come back to that and the kids really respond to that. If you're ever talking to kids about prayer, to have them open the satellite dish of their heart with one wire here, one receiver here, and one up in the divine kingdom. It really is such a beautiful physical image of what we're doing when we're praying. So let's get to the topic at hand. I was thinking about what to talk about tonight, and I've been thinking about this because I just wrapped up this darn book that almost killed me, and I was almost finished. I was about 3/4 of the way done, and I honestly was at this place. I was like, why the hell did I do this? Why did I sign up for this? It's so hard. It's killing me. I kept saying to my wife, like, this is killing me. It's killing me. And then, of course, I finished it, and then I was like, oh, I got an idea for another book. So my next book I'd like to write, I mean, I don't even know if anyone will buy this book. I don't even know if I could sell another book. But one I've been thinking about a lot is the meaning of life, because we are currently in a pandemic that doesn't have anything to do with COVID-19. We're in a pandemic of what I would call what social scientists call deaths of despair. The mental health crisis among young people is almost too vast to describe. And it's woefully kind of, people over, I'd say around 55 or 60 are almost woefully ignorant of how deep and horrific this mental health epidemic is among young people. Suicides are up 30% over the last 15 years. Over 50% of college students describe having some kind of mental health issue, anxiety, depression, addiction, loneliness. The loneliness epidemic is absolutely astonishing. Throughout recorded human history, the loneliest generation was always senior citizens. They felt the most kind of put out to pasture. They're often in old folks' homes, and they were always described themselves as being the most lonely. And about 5 years ago, this changed, and it's Gen Z and Gen Y. It's teenagers and people in their 20s are now the loneliest generation. So the people who rely the most, count the most, put the most credence into social connection, in high school, college, work, internships, fraternities, are the most lonely. And I have a chapter in the book I call A Plethora of Pandemics, and it's about all the pandemics that humanity is suffering from that are not COVID. And I have loneliness and the mental health epidemic on here. And the reason I bring this up is there's so many different ways to parse out what's happening with this epidemic, but one of them is a lack of meaning. The world is getting harder and harder to live in. It's more stressful. It's more anxiety ridden. Certainly not helped by screens and social media and screen addiction. But there's very little hope for the future. But among young people, we see a kind of epic lack of meaning. And meaning and hope go hand in hand. So I'd like to share with you a few writings from the Baha'i faith and just the germ, the seed of a few things having to do with the meaning of life, because I think that this is not an abstract idea. This is not a philosophical idea. This is not an interesting mystical idea to muse on. These ideas, and I'm not saying I have the answers by any means, I turn as a Baha'i to the writings of Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha for focus, for meaning, for solace. But this is a topic that is crucially important, especially for folks under 30, but for all of us. It's a topic that's it's a life and death topic. So I present it with that in mind. And forgive my PowerPoint skills; they're not very good, and it's not a very good PowerPoint. But there's some, and there's only a couple of basic ideas in here and some basic quotes to kind of begin a conversation, and that's what I'd love to do with you guys. I'm gonna kind of motor through this and some of the ideas over the next 15 or 20 minutes, and then I'd love to get it into more of a conversation. There might be some folks out there who don't know very much about the Baha'i faith, and I'm happy to answer questions about the Baha'i faith as well. But I'd love to, especially if anyone is wrestling with or dealing with any kind of mental health issues or a search for meaning. This is something that, before I share this, I just want to share one other thing. This is something that was really personally important to me because I suffered from a lot of mental health issues. I still do. I still struggle, but especially in my 20s and early 30s. Anxiety, despair, depression, addiction issues. And that's what started my spiritual search and brought me. I was raised Baha'i and then ejected it. I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't want anything to do with God or spirituality or religion. Dear God, religion. No, please give me a break. But I came back to it because I was so unhappy. And oh, look, Laylee Miller Murrow's calling me. Any of you know her?
She should be on right now.
I know. She knows a lot about this topic. So the what was I saying? So this is what prompted my spiritual search that brought me back to Baha'i faith and helped me to kind of clarify what my life's mission was, besides being an actor and a comedian, that I wanted to explore these life's biggest questions. There's an author named Julia Cameron who wrote an amazing book called The Artist's Way. I'll put that in the chat too. If you're looking for meaning in your life, she's incredible, and all her works are incredible. But this is a workbook that helps you in a kind of a creative writing process to help to spark your soul and open your heart. And it's a really beautiful book. But she said, she said, and I quote, I came to spirituality out of necessity. I came to spirituality out of necessity, not out of virtue. And I feel that same way. So as we think about the meaning of life, we think about coming to spirituality out of necessity, not out of virtue. So what is the purpose of our physical reality? Why are we here? Why are we given 80 to 90 years on this planet in these bodies? And, you know, what reason is that? I'm just going to make an assumption here that there is a God, that we have a soul that continues on a journey after our physical bodies fall away, that we are on a journey toward meeting a creator that is beyond time and space, that is filled with beauty and mystery and wonder, and that this infinite journey toward our maker is filled with difficulties, certainly on this physical plane, but also great joy and awe and wonder. I don't want to get into like the atheist kind of discussion. We'll just assume that there's a God and we have a soul. And in this assumption, we have 80 or 90 years in our meat suits, and then our flesh tuxedos fall apart and we will continue. So while we're here, what are we doing with those 80 or 90 years? One of my favorite quotes of all time is by Father Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. He's a Jesuit mystic, French, brilliant writer. And he says, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And I love the shift of perspective, just in twisting those two sentences ever so subtly. He allows us to go, oh, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. I'm a soul, and I'm given an 80, 90-year ride in this body. You know, what is that about? What is that human experience that our Creator wants us to have? Abdul-Baha, again, the son of the founder of the Baha'i faith, Baha'u'llah, his name means servant of glory. Abdul-Baha says, man, the true man is soul, not body. Though physically man belongs to the animal kingdom, yet his soul lifts him above the rest of creation. There's a famous quote often attributed to C.S. Lewis where he says, I don't have a soul. I am a soul. I have a body. So again, one of these phrases that kind of shifts our perspective a little bit. Abdul-Baha also says, man is in reality a spiritual being, and only when he lives in the spirit is he truly happy. So this could be, and you circle this one, take a little screenshot of this amazing quote with your phones, because as we delve into this mental health crisis among young people, this is something that might help. This is this might be the difference between life and death. that we have a majority of young people living as atheists and agnostics for a very good reason. You know, most religion sucks. But I'm going to get some feedback on that. Religion doesn't suck. You can't say religion sucks. But certainly understandable why young people would feel that way. But then you're negating one of the most key fundamental keys to happiness, was that if we live in the spirit, then we're truly happy. So how to do that? That's easier said than done. Baha'is all around the world, all 5 or 6 million of us, say this short prayer every day between noon and sunset. It's a Baha'i daily obligatory prayer. And in it is one of the keys to the meaning of life from a Baha'i perspective. I bear witness, O my God, that thou hast created me to know thee and to worship thee. I testify at this moment to my powerlessness and to thy might, to my poverty and to thy wealth. There is none other God but thee, the help in peril, the self-subsisting. So this would be, wow. This is a wow prayer to me. You're not asking for help, and you're not saying thanks for creating me and thanks for the delicious iced green tea. I love this iced green tea so much. Oh my God. Every day, my day is marked by sips of iced green tea. It's not a thanks, it's a wow, you know, and it's deeper than wow. It's the deepest possible wow. You're saying, thou hast created me to know thee and to worship thee. You can even take a screenshot of this, maybe take your phone and take a picture of this, folks that don't know this prayer. But that's the key part. Thou hast created me to know thee and to worship thee. So we were created, we're told by God right here in this prayer, to know and worship God. Oh, that's easy. Boom, mic drop. That's it. Talk is done. Well, it gets a little more complicated than that. Because, like I say over on the little red graphic on the side here, what does it mean to know and worship God? I mean, it's easier said than done. I mean, it's at first blush, you're like, to know God. Well, that means read the holy writings. And to worship God, that means to say prayers. So, but that's an extremely superficial, two-dimensional way of reading those two words. Because as you dig deeper, knowing God and worshiping God are very complicated, nuanced, deep, rich, multifaceted actions. For instance, I pulled up some quotes relating. He hath known God who hath known himself. This is Baha'u'llah quoting the Imam Ali from the Quran. So the more we get to know ourselves, the more we get to know God. And you talk about how do you worship God? Well, Baha'u'llah says, work in the spirit of service is worship in the eyes of God. Oh, so worship doesn't just mean saying prayers. Worship can also mean working in service to others. That's worship. So here, all of a sudden, one could undertake, well, I want to get to know myself better, like really better, deep therapy, deep examination, reading, pondering, meditating, sharing vulnerably, getting to know my emotions, my intellect, and my spiritual virtues. We'll get to those later, because in all of our spiritual virtues is reflected the light of God. But work, and then finally I included a quote about art. What bestowal could be greater than this, that one's art should be even as the act of worshiping the Lord? That is to say, when thy fingers grasp the paintbrush, it is as if thou wert at prayer in the temple. So this is Abdul Baha essentially saying, making art is the same as prayer, is the same as worship. Making art is the same as worship. So again, worship is not just saying prayers. Worship is making art. Worship is working in service. And there's many, many other quotes. This is just a few. So knowing and worshiping God is a very complicated, complex, multifaceted activity. I'm going to skip this quote here, but look at the bottom quote. What is the purpose of our lives, Abdu'l-Baha? Someone asked Abdu'l-Baha, and he replied, to acquire virtues. Here's another quote. The purpose of the creation of man is the attainment of the supreme virtues of humanity. Dara, are you there, dear?
Yes, sir.
What are some of the virtues that Abdu'l-Baha are talking about? What are the supreme virtues of humanity?
Oh my goodness. Well, yours are enthusiasm, creativity, steadfastness, service, humility, joy, optimism, honor.
You
Okay, I'm done.
said humility. Humility is not. That's not on my. It's not on mine.
Drive that your actions day by day, darling.
Great. So thank you. Yes, Dara works in this field of. Dara works in this field of virtues education, and we can talk more about that later. So here's another. There's several other quotes having to do with this, but this is another Baha'i insight into the meaning of life, which is the attainment of virtues. So what does that mean? You know how Baha'u'llah said to know God is to know thyself? Well, our virtues that Dara talked about, courageousness, lovingness, loving kindness, compassion, honesty, these are the qualities of the divine spirit, the cosmic force, the all-seeing, all-loving, all-knowing God of this universe and infinite other universes. So we develop these qualities of the divine over the course of our lives. This doesn't have to do with Baha'is. This has nothing to do with Baha'is. This is all of us. This is our life's journey, these virtues don't just start at a certain level and then we die and they're at the same level. Like, you can work at them, just like you work out. If you're working in the gym and you work on your biceps and you start and you can only bench 5 pounds and eventually you can do 35 pounds, you can do the same thing with your spiritual virtues. They can be grown and cultivated, because remember, what is the purpose of our physical reality? Why are we here and why are we alive? We've got 80, 90 years in our meat suits. What are we taking with us when we leave these bodies? Well, we're taking those spiritual virtues with us. That's all we're taking with us. We're not taking our stuff. We're not taking our green tea. Dara, would you read this quote?
Sure. In this world, he must prepare himself for the life beyond. That divine world is manifestly a world of lights. Therefore, man has need of illumination here. That is a world of love. The love of God is essential. It is a world of perfections. Virtues or perfections must be acquired. That world is vivified by the breaths of the Holy Spirit. In this world, we must seek them. That is the kingdom of life everlasting. It must be attained during this vanishing existence. Abdu'l-Baha.
Wonderful. So again, virtues or perfections must be acquired in this world. Now, for the mental health crisis, this is a little more challenging maybe for young people to think about. But if they think about that their purpose is to cultivate their kindness, cultivate their connection, cultivate their creativity, cultivate their honesty, their enthusiasm, their courage, their determination. This might be a help in this mental health crisis. Here's another quote here that I'm going to skip through this pretty quickly. The Baha'i faith is fundamentally mystic in character. This is Shoghi Effendi, the great grandson of Baha'u'llah, who was a great Baha'i leader and teacher. And he says, its chief goal is the development of the individual and society through the acquisition of spiritual virtues and powers. I'm not going to talk about suffering. It's a whole other conversation. And then finally, another aspect of the Baha'i teachings about the meaning of life is Baha'u'llah saying that all men have been created to carry forth an ever-advancing civilization. So here's another reason why we have been created. First of all, we were created to know and worship God, says Baha'u'llah in the daily obligatory prayer of the Baha'is. Then Abdul Baha says, we were created to cultivate virtues. Then Baha'u'llah says here, we've been created to carry forward an ever-advancing civilization. So what does that mean? Hold on, I'll tell you. Am I spotlighted? How do I spotlight myself?
You're spotlighted.
I am?
Yes.
You're
Oh,
most
okay.
spotlighted.
Okay, great. I don't, because I'm small in my thing. Thank you very much. This is one of the topics that I address in Soul Boom, which is in the Baha'i faith, there's something called a twofold moral purpose, that every person was created for a spiritual journey. The spiritual journey happens on a personal level. I, Rainn Wilson, try and be kinder, more humble, more honest, more compassionate through the course of my life. I try and know and worship God on a daily basis in my life. That's my one part of my journey. And the other part of my twofold moral purpose is to try and make the world a better place, to make the world more spiritual, to serve others. There's a billion people on our planet going to bed hungry every night. There's great economic injustice. There's tremendous racism that needs to be healed and addressed. There's many issues going on, and so it is our spiritual duty to work on making the world a better place. This is something that people in the West, or in America especially, don't take in or don't understand. For many of the people that I interact with in the Los Angeles area, a spirituality, if anyone does cultivate it or believe in it or cherish it, is there to make us feel better. It's there to make us calmer, more peaceful. It's there to give us solace and serenity. And it stops there. So it's a yoga class, it's a meditation, it's reading an inspiring text, it's gathering with a group of friends. But that is ultimately selfish. It's ultimately narcissistic if that's where one's spiritual life begins and ends, because God prizes justice above all things, and serving others, reducing suffering, has been modeled by all of the great spiritual teachers throughout time: Jesus, the Buddha, Muhammad, and Baha'u'llah. And this is part of our spiritual journey as well. So this is kind of a revolutionary idea that spirituality is actually has this joint parallel journeys that kind of are yin and yang. They work together. Like I work on myself and then I gain great energy and power, and then I can put that in the world and serve others and help make the world better for others, and then that feeds me as well and makes me better, kinder, more compassionate, and then I use that power to go out into the world. So there's this circular path. So this is summing it up. What is the meaning of life according to these handful of Baha'i teachings? To know God, to worship God, to obtain virtues, and help create an ever-advancing civilization. So that's just some thoughts there. And I think that, again, going to the ever-advancing civilization, what does that mean? Well, Baha'is believe that God wants for humanity a maturity, a spiritual maturity that we don't have right now. And we might be technologically very advanced. There have been tremendous advances all the time. I'm going to order dinner tonight. I'm going to pick up my phone. I'm going to go to an app and I'm going to press like 7 buttons. And then in 45 minutes, I'm going to have an incredible dinner at my door. You know, like it's incredible, our technological advances, but spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, from a wisdom perspective, we are pretty stuck. So this is this is an important part of being a Baha'i. Is another way to serve humanity is to help spread, not necessarily like convert people to the Baha'i faith, but to spread spiritual ideas and engage in deep and meaningful conversations with people about profound spiritual ideas to help elevate conversation and elevate our interactivity and our maturity. So those are some ideas around the meaning of life. And again, the reason I wanted to kind of jump into those tonight was really tying it back to this mental health crisis that is which is causing so many young people untold suffering. And there are a great many of spiritual solutions to some of these really devastating, life-threatening issues of what doctors call diseases of despair. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. That's what I wanted to say today, and certainly open for any questions or comments or what anyone wants to discuss around this. And I would love to hear from folks. Here's some specific questions. We talked about knowing and worshiping God. I'd love to hear how some of you experience that, maybe even from people that aren't Baha'is. Like, how do you know and worship God? I mean, for some people that I know, and myself sometimes included, the best way they know God is by connection with nature. Being in nature, finding peace in nature and connection with nature. And people might even say, I don't even know if I believe in God, but I believe in nature. I believe in the beauty, power, majesty, wonder, mystery, and peace of nature. And maybe that's how you know and worship God, is to appreciate nature and serve nature. Yeah, so I'd love to hear from you if anyone has any ideas or thoughts.